You don't talk about it, not to your friends, not to your family, maybe not even to yourself, but you feel it, that heaviness, that invisible weight sitting in your chest, the emptiness that meditation doesn't fix, the fatigue no sleep can heal. You're doing everything right. You're journaling, you're manifesting, you're listening to the teachings, the podcasts, the affirmations. You're checking all the boxes, but you feel further away from your spirit than ever. And sometimes you wonder if you failed, because no one warned you that the spiritual path isn't always light and synchronicity and angel numbers. Sometimes it's silence, stagnation, being stuck in a place that used to feel like progress. If this feels familiar, don't look away, because what you're about to hear might shift everything. In the next few minutes, we're going to explore a truth that most spiritual teachers won't tell you, not because they're hiding it, but because it can't be taught in words. It has to be felt, lived, recognized in the quietest parts of you. But I promise, if you stay with me until the end, you'll walk away understanding something that your soul has been whispering for years, that you're not stuck, you're being initiated, and what looks like a dead end is actually the beginning of something sacred. Most people think spiritual awakening feels like light, but the truth? It often begins with darkness, a kind of darkness that doesn't come from the world outside you, but from deep inside the places you've spent your whole life avoiding. At first, everything feels expansive. You start meditating. You feel connected. The synchronicities show up. The signs are everywhere. It's like the universe is speaking directly to you. But then, it stops. Suddenly, the silence gets louder. The messages go quiet. The clarity dissolves. And all you're left with is you, but not the version of you that's enlightened, the version that's wounded, that's angry, that's scared, doubtful, tired. You start wondering, did I lose the connection? Was it all in my head? Why don't I feel anything anymore? You try to fix it, more rituals, more mantras, more spiritual content, but nothing works. Because here's what no one tells you. The silence is the next stage. It's not a sign of failure. It's not regression. It's the descent, the sacred spiral inward. This is the part where your soul stops asking for more light and starts asking for more truth. And truth isn't always comfortable. Sometimes it rips away the false selves you built in the name of growth. Sometimes it forces you to sit in the rawness you thought healing would protect you from. This isn't stagnation. This is purification. And only those who stay, who choose to sit with the discomfort, find what lies beneath it. The moment you feel stuck is the moment you're standing at a spiritual threshold. But thresholds are tricky. They don't look like gateways. They look like dead ends, and most people turn back. They assume something's gone wrong, that the path has disappeared, that they've lost their connection to source. But you haven't lost anything. You're just being asked to move from seeking to becoming. Because here's the paradox of real growth. It doesn't always feel like elevation. Sometimes it feels like death. Not physical death, but the death of illusion, the death of identity, the quiet crumbling of who you thought you needed to be in order to feel spiritual. You're not broken, you're not off track, you're right on time. What's really happening is that your soul is inviting you to step beyond the surface, into a deeper integrity. You've learned the words, you've memorized the affirmations, you know how to act aligned. But now you're being asked to embody it, without the highs, without the signs, without needing the universe to perform for you. This is where real devotion begins, not to a practice, but to your inner knowing. And here's what's wild. The moment you stop trying to fix the stuckness and instead lean into it with curiosity, you begin to feel something else. Stillness, depth, presence that doesn't depend on progress. And from that presence, a different kind of movement begins. One that doesn't come from the mind, but from something ancient and remembering. Do you know why you feel stuck? Because something in you is no longer satisfied with borrowed light. You've outgrown the noise of surface spirituality, the dopamine rush of rituals that made you feel holy, but never held you when things fell apart, the temporary fixes, the curated moments of clarity, the illusion that healing is always beautiful. What you're feeling now is not stagnation, it's incubation. You're not lost. You're becoming unrecognizable, even to yourself, because the version of you that chased awakening is not the one who will embody it. And so you're in between, no longer the person you were, not yet the person you're becoming. This is the void, the womb, the sacred space where the soul rearranges itself in silence. And like any real birth, it's messy, it's uncomfortable, it doesn't come with guidance, just contractions, tight, dark, silent stretches of time where nothing makes sense. But that stillness you keep fighting, that emptiness you think means failure, that's the exact condition your soul needs to restructure. Because the spirit doesn't evolve through clarity, it evolves through surrender. And surrender doesn't mean giving up, it means giving in to the mystery, to the unknown, to the wisdom that only arrives after the mind stops begging for answers. So if everything feels like it's not working, it might mean something deeper finally is. There's a reason this phase feels so hollow, so directionless, so quiet. Because the lesson you're here to receive isn't something you'll hear in a guided meditation. It's not in a quote, or a video, or a mantra you repeat 108 times. It's buried in the stillness, in the ache, in the place where you finally stop trying to escape yourself. You're not stuck because you've stopped moving. You're stuck because life is asking you to move differently, not forward, not upward, but deeper. The real lesson here is not how to find more answers. It's how to sit in the questions without collapsing, to stop chasing meaning and start becoming the space where meaning reveals itself. This is where true alignment is born, not from force, but from willingness. Willingness to be present, to feel what's actually here, to grieve the version of you who thought healing would look different, to stop pretending you know where this is going, and trust that where you are now is not a mistake. It takes strength to do that, real strength, not the kind that looks confident, the kind that's quiet, honest, trembling, but open. And it's here, in that openness, that the real voice of your soul begins to speak, not through signs, not through visions, but through a felt knowing that no longer needs permission to be heard. What if feeling stuck isn't a problem to solve, but a doorway to walk through? What if you're not failing, but being emptied, so something real can finally take its place? Every journey has a descent, every soul has its night, and every awakening begins with forgetting who you thought you were. That heaviness you feel, it's not proof that you're broken. It's proof that you're carrying something that no longer belongs to you. And the longer you hold it, the harder it gets to hear yourself beneath the noise. But the moment you let it fall, not fix it, not heal it, just let it fall, a deeper part of you rises to meet what's left. Because here's the truth no one tells you. You don't become whole by chasing light. You become whole by reclaiming what you abandoned in the dark. So if this message has stirred something inside you, if you felt seen, not by me, but by the part of yourself that's been whispering all along, say it. Comment below, not for engagement, but because there's power in naming your moment. And sometimes, seeing someone else's words gives you the permission to speak your own. Subscribe if you haven't, not just to hear more, but to remember what you already know. You're not alone in this. You never were. Something happens when you stop running, when you stop reaching for answers to fix the silence, and instead, you start listening to it. At first, it's subtle, a soft shift, like the hum beneath the noise becomes clearer. You're still confused, still uncertain, but somehow, you're not afraid of it anymore, because you're not demanding the moment to change. You're learning how to be with it, exactly as it is. That's the beginning of sovereignty, and from that place, something begins to emerge. Not a solution, not a sudden rush of enlightenment, but a quiet inner voice, one that was always there, buried under the shoulds, the mantras, the seeking. It speaks in feelings, not words, in knowing, not concepts, in presence, not performance. And you realize, maybe you were never stuck, maybe you were just paused, held, wrapped in a silence so intelligent, it knew when to withhold light so you could remember you are not separate from it. This is what the spiritual path rarely shows you, that the awakening doesn't always come with fireworks. Sometimes it comes as a soft exhale, a quiet returning, a sudden moment of peace, with no reason at all. And that's how you know it's real. You don't return from this journey the same. You're softer, but stronger, more silent, but more sure. Because now you're not driven by the need to feel spiritual. You're not chasing signs to validate your path. You're walking it, with or without proof. This is what spiritual maturity looks like. Choosing presence over performance, substance over sparkle, truth over trend. You realize that you don't need every moment to feel meaningful because you've become the meaning. You've made peace with the waiting, with the not knowing, with the strange rhythm of your own becoming. And in that peace, you start to notice the small things again. The way your breath moves when you stop resisting. The way your body relaxes when it doesn't have to fix anything. The way the world seems to slow down, just enough for you to notice it's been holding you all along. This is the hidden lesson. Not that the stuckness was a mistake, but that it was a mirror, showing you everything in you that wanted certainty before it chose love, that wanted understanding before it chose surrender. And now, you don't need to fight the unknown. You've befriended it. And in doing so, you've remembered who you were before the noise, before the pressure, before the story. You've become the witness, the space, the still point in the center of the storm, and no one can take that from you. You thought the silence meant something was wrong, that the universe had gone quiet, that your guides, your intuition, your path had abandoned you. But what if that silence was the most sacred sound of all? What if it wasn't absence, but presence too deep for words? You see, the mind looks for fireworks, for confirmations, for miracles it can measure and categorize. But the soul listens in stillness. It knows that when everything stops moving outside, something finally starts moving within. And that's what was happening all along. The silence was never empty. It was filled with instruction, with integration, with information your ego didn't know how to translate. That's why nothing made sense, because you were being spoken to in a language only your presence could understand, not through signs, but through surrender, not through progress, but through patience. You were being calibrated, not punished, not forgotten, just refined, so that when you did begin again, you would carry something real, and that real wouldn't come from anything you achieved. It would come from everything you endured. That's how truth settles into the body, not by force, but by fire. And if you're still here, still listening, still breathing into the quiet, then maybe you're closer than you think. Maybe the silence wasn't a void after all. Maybe it was a vow between you and the part of yourself that refused to give up. You've walked through silence. You've sat with stillness. You've met the ache you thought you had to avoid. And now you're here, not as the seeker, not as the student, but as the one who stayed. And that changes everything, because the ones who stay, who breathe through the doubt, who sit through the dark without begging for light, they don't return empty. They return as fire, but not the kind that burns for approval, not the one that screams to be seen. A quiet fire, rooted, aware, unshakable. You've become the light you were chasing, the very signal you were waiting for, not because the universe gave you a sign, but because you finally became still enough to hear the one that was already inside. This is what no one tells you about being stuck. It's not a trap, it's a chrysalis. And the you that's coming out of it isn't here to repeat. They're here to begin again, but from truth this time. So if this journey spoke to something in you, if you feel like something ancient just woke up, say it below. Let the others know they're not alone in this silence. And subscribe, not because you need more answers, but because you're ready for deeper questions. You've returned, but you are not the same. And from this moment on, your silence will speak louder than ever before.